The other day I received a message from the TYT Community Facebook page, and this woman wanted to share her story with me, and I just thought it was so beautiful and so well written that I want to read it, and then we can just discuss. I will leave out her name because she requested me to do so. During the last election cycle, I was disturbed by the quote-unquote makers versus takers position adopted by some. This argument has come up repeatedly since, both in policy proposals by Congress and on right-wing radio talk shows. I worked consistently from the time I was 15 years old in 1976 until November 2010, when I was reorganized out of my position. I was the sole support for my family, and we were comfortable on my salary and benefits, which together approached a six-figure compensation package. In the intervening 2 years, 8 months, 2 weeks, but who's counting, of unemployment, I paid off a car loan. I co-signed on a second car loan and was also paid in full. I continued sending my kids to their respective schools. I paid my bills. The unemployment benefits ran out. So did savings. So did the retirement fund. But I was expected to continue, and in fact have continued to pay all my creditors. My kids each took full-time jobs to continue going to school, but then the dam of life sprung several leaks. My car insurance company was hacked, and our personal data were among those records compromised. My once 750 credit score tanked. I had to take an extension on filing my taxes because of all last year's income came from draining my retirement account. I owe taxes on that money, which I no longer have. I can't register my car for the coming year because it won't pass smog inspection and won't until I replace the catalytic converter, a repair I can't afford. And creme de la creme, despite having made certain that all of my bills were paid, including the rent on the house I've occupied for over 7.5 years, my Fox News viewing and spewing landlord has not paid her mortgage lender since last August. The bank frowns on this practice and foreclosed. It is forcing a sale at nearly $100,000 over the market value of the property. Although I have done nothing wrong, I now have to relocate fast. Because of people just like my taker landlord, rents within a 50-minute drive of my current location have gone up $800 a month over what I'm paying now. Because of people just like my taker landlord, local storage space facilities are 90% full and charging 50% more than they did even a couple months ago. Because of people just like my taker landlord, my family has nowhere to go and no recourse. With 2 adult children in the household, my husband, who recently found part-time employment, and I are eligible for no assistance programs whatsoever. This is another story of someone with resources walking away from a willingly undertaken obligation, while someone who tries to meet obligations regardless of obstacles is left in their wake. The next time someone goes on a tirade about who the, quote, takers are in our society, I hope you will use your particular forum to inform them that there are thousands, I know several personally, of people just like me who worked for decades and never needed or took help, now find themselves ineligible for help and who are hanging on by the tips of their shredded fingernails and are simply looking for somewhere to shelter that precious microwave purchased when times weren't so tough, but which now distinguishes them from the truly poor. Thank you, and peace.
This is heartbreaking. This is sad. What are we doing here in America for people like this? People who did everything that they were supposed to do. They did everything right, and then suddenly they get in unfortunate circumstances. Something happens. They lose their job. You know, somebody gets sick, and then they're tossed out on the street. They're tossed into poverty, and there's no coming back from that. And so, man, this is devastating.
It is heartbreaking to hear all these stories and to hear so many like them over and over and over again, and to have your own stories as well.
You're right. It happens over and over and over again. It's the gutting of the middle class. It's the fall. it's the fallout from horrible greed from those who
Mhm.
are, you know, at the top end of the spectrum, who have everything and decide that they want more.
I mean, well, I hate the greed argument because like Wall Street firms are not less greedy or more greedy. Greed is a constant. Like it depends on other factors than greed. But I
Oh, but
don't
they are
like
able
this.
to exercise that greed a lot more
But
effectively.
they, but they've always like I hate that explanation. But my point is like the first thing that stuck out is she got thrown out of her house that she was paying rent to because the landlord wasn't paying his mortgage. Like that's like totally ridiculous. The bank like she could either sue the bank or the landlord. Like you can't do that. Like we've seen I don't
How
know
do you
what her
sue
ten
without resources, though? That's my question. How do you
Well,
sue
I
she
without
I,
can't.
resources?
Who
You're
can
gonna have to
afford a
find
lawyer?
somebody that'll go pro bono.
Yeah,
I
who can
understand.
afford a lawyer? I mean, even around in this area, the cheapest lawyer is about $3,000.
Right. I mean it's just but that's ridiculous because I pay rent to a place where like my landlord is paying a mortgage, so like that's like the most to me that's like the most gruesome like idea that they could just not pay their mortgage and then like they're like you who did everything right, they're just gonna take your apartment or like what you're renting. Like I realized she was renting a house, but
Right.
like
Now
that's crazy.
That's
the other
it's a
thing,
scary. It's very scary. It gives you it makes you feel like you're dangling on the edge of insecurity. I mean, it's very similar to what happened when I was still a teenager. I wasn't even an adult yet, and my mom came down with lung cancer. She couldn't work anymore. We were surviving on savings, and at the same time, the rent in our apartment that we had been living in and paying rent in faithfully for 13 years went up over $200 over what we were paying,
and
and
here's
we
the
couldn't do
second
it.
part that I got from this story, is that the safety net is not really there. Now, I've heard some people compare it to, well, it's a safety hammock. No, it's not. It's
Right.
got
So
Swiss cheese.
the so-called safety net is there to prevent some people, not even all of them, from starving. But it's not there to prevent people who are technically in the middle class ranking from falling down below poverty levels.
Yeah, and it's completely ridiculous how they measure like if you're gonna have the safety net that it's ridiculous how they measure it because if you win the lottery that and you take all of it in lump sum, and this has happened, at least one case, then the next year you don't technically make any income and you qualify for social benefits. But if you're in trouble and you're working and you're above that threshold, but you're not really, you're still kind of stuck, then they just tell you to like basically to piss off. Like like that to me that's crazy. That it's not if you're gonna have a safety net, you have to look at more than just your last year's annual income. Like that never made any sense for me.
Right. Well, I remember the story of the person who had won the lottery and had gotten food stamps, and of course, as soon as everybody found out about it, because it's a good likelihood that she did not disclose the fact that, hey, I won the lottery, right? It
Oh
got
no,
taken
she
away.
Right.
It got
I
immediately
remember
yanked.
the story.
And
She
those are
basically
the
said,
type of
well, they
things
kept
that injure me. If you
they
win the lottery, you don't need food stamps, and
yeah,
you're taking it away from people who do need them, and you're making the people who do need them
look
look
bad.
bad, look really, really bad.
but I'm saying you have
She
this
was
woman.
She was an idiot, though. I mean, basically what she said is like, well, they kept sending them to me, so I just kept using them. Well, you're supposed to report changes in your income.
I mean,
Yes.
but
So
but
she broke the, it's not as if you can still get benefits and apply for benefits if you win.
but
If you
there
You're
win the
supposed
lottery,
to
you come
disclose
into some
it.
money, but you're supposed to report it so that they can say, okay, you're no longer eligible.
Yeah,
This
they
isn't
do
blaming the
count.
system. This is blaming the person for obvious fraud.
Yeah,
there
they ask you what your assets are, which includes how much money in lump sum bank accounts you have now, and they count that against you.
there's like but I'm saying this woman got hit. My point was this woman gets hit like really hard, right? Like the safety net's supposed to be designed to help. I'm guessing people like her. I don't know. Like all I know is from the letter. I don't know her exact situation. But like you have for instance like some people who may or may not be my friends who will work under the table and get unemployment benefits. Like, not anybody that I know specifically, but like some people will do that, and like it seems like if you're doing the right thing, then the system doesn't help you. But if you figure out a way to cheat the system, then like nobody's gonna catch you.
Right,
Is
and,
what
and here's
my
the
point
thing,
was.
it's like people are humans, and there are some people out there that spend all day trying to find ways to cheat the system. And yeah, they're out there. They're a very small amount of people, but they're out there, right? And the thing about them is that the thing that really bothers me about them actually is the fact that they cheat the system and then they give opponents of that system ammunition to say, "Oh, look at that! See, rampant fraud and abuse. We just got to get rid of the whole thing. Get rid of the whole
But
thing." Well,
Yeah.
but
you can't do
it's
that because there
it's
are
not.
people like her. There are people that need that stuff, and
But
I feel
it's
really bad that the person in this letter, she does not qualify for any of that.
but it's not just like it's like you have this woman, right, who if you're gonna like arrange a society that's gonna have the safety net, right, agree or disagree whether that's the proper thing to do. So you have this woman, right, who would seem like, based on the information that I have right now, would be somebody who should get this help, right? And then you have like people and companies that are like taking advantage of food stamps. Like recently in New York, we had a story that one of the supermarkets will swipe a $250 purchase and give the customer $200 back, and just take that 250 that extra $50 as just money for them. And like you have these people
What
gaming the
you can't
system.
wait. From what I understand, how Snap works, you can't get cash back. I mean,
No, you
No,
cannot.
unless you
that
have something called the cash benefit. Now
no,
that's
that's
different from food stamps. You
no.
can't actually get
I
cash
understand what you
back. At least
I
not in
understand
my state.
I understand what you're saying. That's why I'm talking about this. It's a scam. Basically, you have $250 worth of food stamps, right? But you want $200 worth of cash. So this market will charge your $250 worth of food stamps. They'll take that and pretend like you bought food, and they'll give you cash instead, right?
I
And
hope they go to prison for that.
that was like the scandal that was happening like recently. And like you have these people who take advantage of it, and then other people who seem like they would need it, and they don't qualify based on like whatever, because they probably measured the fact that she was in this house or whatever as like an asset, or the cars, they probably measured it as an asset. Like it's design it seems like it's designed to help people who have nothing better to do but cheat the system, and when somebody needs it, they don't qualify because their income is like $150 higher than is required. And that's what bothers me.
Yeah, and look, we do have issues with how the safety net is, calculated, and we also have an issue with how the poverty line is calculated. It's way too low. The poverty line is
Absolutely.
way too low, especially with inflation and current economics. The current economic situation here in America right now. It's way too low.
And
Right.
the poverty and
If the poverty line were established where it should be right now, then we would have about half the population in poverty, in or
well
below poverty.
I actually disagree. We should have different poverty lines in different states,
Well,
because
that would make more sense, because really you look at New York, which is vastly different than Boise, Idaho, and then you've got
right.
L.A. that's much more different than some of the small rural areas in California. So I mean, you got to take that into account in a way
All right.
because standards of living are different in different places. So point taken, and it's a good
Well,
point.
thank you very much to the woman who sent me that story, and keep in touch. And if anyone else has a story they'd like to share, I would love to share it with our audience.